Hello Internet, my name is Lave and I watched The Informant, which is directed by Andrea di Stefano, whose only other directing credit is Escobar Paradise Lost, which I haven't seen. I did have to look this guy up. He's been an actor in a couple of films and he's also written a couple of movies, including this one, co-writing the screenplay, which follows a guy called Pete Kozlow, an American of Polish descent, a former soldier, now ex-convict, working undercover for the FBI to help take down the Polish mob's drug trade. But when a deal goes wrong, Pete finds himself back in prison, fighting for survival, not knowing who to trust. Which is a plot premise I'm sure has been done before, and to be honest, this is a very straightforward thriller. I didn't have high expectations going into it. The best I was hoping for was a solid, engaging watch, kind of in the same vein as The Recruit with Al Pacino and Colin Farrell, which in itself didn't set my world on fire, but it did keep me engaged and offered a few surprises towards the end. This one isn't on par with that. I'm not saying that it's bad. Certain aspects of it are very efficient, but there's nothing really remarkable about it. Like the casting of Joel Kinnaman as Peter, who's okay, but his performance and character is like every other performance I've seen from him. The stoical, rough around the edges military guy who actually has a soft centre and he's just trying to do good for his family. Granted, I haven't seen any of his native Swedish films where he might show a wider range to his acting ability, but his performance in this is just like every other American produced film that I've seen him in, like RoboCop or Suicide Squad or even Altered Carbon. I've nothing against the guy, but I do find his performances quite flat, and if I was him, I would definitely be speaking to my agent saying, stop pigeonholing me into these types of roles. I'm also quite surprised that Rosamund Pike has taken on this role. She seems to go from an Oscar-worthy performance in a good film to a mediocre performance in a mediocre film. Her character in this is an FBI agent. She's Peter's handler, and her moral compass is torn between actually helping Peter and impressing her boss, played by Clive Owen, who is one of those British actors who just can't seem to do an American accent. It's so distracting. Common also pops up in the film, delivering a typical performance for him as a New York cop, also investigating the Polish mob, putting him on a collision course with the FBI, often crossing his jurisdiction. And the guy that they got to play the Polish godfather, or the kingpin of all of the crime as it were, in my research turned out to be the guy who actually wrote The Recruit that I mentioned earlier, but his performance in this kind of reminded me of a budget version of a Werner Herzog character. I mean, he does a job, he's alright, and to be honest, all of the cast are working with a pretty generic script, which seems to think that adding gravitas to a scene is by having one of their characters drop the F-bomb, like they'll say, "Don't fuck it up," or "Get out of my fucking shop." The film starts off okay as we're dropped into Peter's world. It's going for dark and gritty, and there is a certain amount of tension at the beginning which slowly fades away and is replaced with an implausible third act. It doesn't go completely ridiculous and over the top like a 90s action movie like Con Air, for example, although come to think about it, Peter's backstory is remarkably similar to Cameron Poe's, so that's my thoughts on The Informer, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. It's the kind of film that you'd expect to see on Netflix, although that doesn't mean what it used to, because Netflix are starting to produce some quality films now. It's watchable. Like I say, it's not bad, it's just so very mediocre. But let me know what you thought if you've seen it down in the comments, and as always, thanks very much for checking out this video. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give it a like, and don't forget to share the Lave. Proje.
Subscribe.